When you're trying to repair a relationship with an ex-partner, oftentimes there can be this feeling of being stuck in this kind of friend zone. And when you're in this friend zone, it can feel really confusing because you've made a lot of changes and you're repairing the relationship. It can feel like you're doing everything right. So why aren't they wanting to move the relationship forward with me? Well, the problem is that being the nice guy, falling for this nice guy syndrome, is the exact reason that you are staying stuck in this friend zone right now. So in this video, I'm going to break down why nice guy behavior, and this isn't gender specific, but I'm calling it nice guy behavior, destroys desire. I'm going to talk about the mistakes that lock you there, and then I'm going to talk about the exact reset that rebuilds this relationship. I get this feeling. When you're repairing a relationship, you're rebuilding and reconnecting with your partner. There's this feeling of having to be polite, constantly available, not having any fights. And this feels like it's going to build emotional safety. But this actually kills a lot of the intimacy that you're trying to build. So I want to explain exactly why and what to do instead. This nice guy syndrome, this kind of people-pleasing action is a trap. It feels like it's the right thing to do, but it actually pushes your partner or ex-partner further and further away. Why do the people that try the hardest, who answer every message and never rock the boat, often become the person that is pushed away the most? And this isn't just in repairing a relationship. This is in building relationships as well. Nice guys finish last. But why do people who cling to this nice guy behavior with their ex-partner end up permanently sidelined? The answer lies in the exact reason why they stay trapped there in the first place. The nice guy trap is very simple. It is mistaking loyalty for submission and care for passivity. This nice guy trap feels like it communicates maturity, but it actually broadcasts quite needy behavior. And this needy behavior destroys what we call intellectual intimacy. So I want you to think about this scenario. You reply to every text message instantly. You drop your own plans when your ex-partner reaches out. You try to solve every one of your ex's problems, no matter what is going on in your life. On the surface, this looks quite generous. But in reality, this very pattern smothers attraction. It shows a lack of independence, a lack of any real individuality. There's only this predictability. And the reason for this is that this is breaking what we call intellectual intimacy. So intellectual intimacy is one of the three core elements of relationships. We have emotional safety, intellectual intimacy, and goal synergy. Now, intellectual intimacy is about growth. It's about respect. It's about independence. It's about your ability to be an independent person who is able to bring elements of your independence to a relationship. But you have to build that independence in the first place. So the healthiest relationships are what we call interdependent. That is, two independent people working in sync with each other in order to achieve a common goal. That is the textbook answer for it. And part of this is to build intellectual intimacy. As an independent person, being able to be completely self-sufficient, having your own ideas, interests, understanding of the world, and time to cultivate that. But falling for this nice guy syndrome does the exact opposite of that. What it tells your partner is that you have very, very little going on outside of them. And that can cause a lot of pressure over time, because then there becomes this expectation that they need to be that for you. So this lack of independence actually bleeds out into the relationship and starts to become smothering. What ends up happening is that you avoid any sort of conflict. And if you avoid any sort of conflict, then the relationship has no way of growing. Conflict in a relationship is kind of like a muscle. You can't build a muscle without very, very small amounts of damage. So you don't want to tear a muscle, but there has to be some sort of conflict of effort and discomfort in order for the relationship to grow through the challenge. But when you're falling for this nice guy syndrome, you avoid conflict entirely. You avoid any disagreements. You never bring a new perspective to the situation. You become very passive, and it may feel nice in the moment, but over time it's very difficult to trust you because you are your own independent person. You have your own thoughts, and your partner or ex-partner knows that. So over time, trust actually breaks down because your partner is only seeing agreement. They're only seeing that no matter what they do, you're always available, you're always answering every single message, you're never providing any sort of outside perspective or alternate interpretation of the world. You're only saying yes. And this is a very people-pleasing kind of attitude to have. And this kills attraction. It actually gives your ex-partner less faith in a potential relationship, because they look forward and they think to themselves, I'm going to be the one that has to lead this relationship. I'm going to be the one that is constantly steering the ship, because all my partner does is agree with me. Because things like avoiding conflicts, never saying no, this signals a low self-leadership, and that kills attraction. This creates discord in the relationship. And the cost of this is absolutely brutal. You know, your ex-partner may like you, may even trust you, but ultimately no longer feels drawn to you. And there's a lot of research on this, on people pleasing. The research shows that this style of interaction produces low sex appeal, because it kind of screams passivity and non-confrontation. And this is where a lot of people get stuck in trying to repair this relationship. They start to build this emotional safety, but they never build the other elements of the relationship. And that's why when you're building emotional safety within the relationship, you become this reliable friend that maybe they can lean on, but you're never really the person that brings excitement and interest and growth towards the relationship. And ultimately, this reshapes the entire dynamic of the relationship. So when you're falling for this nice guy syndrome, you think you're giving stability, but what is actually being experienced by your ex-partner is almost neutrality without any real spark. You know, relationships require a bit of polarity, a bit of push and pull that creates energy between two people. Without that, safety takes over at the cost of desire. And this leaves only comfort, but with no actual chemistry, if that makes sense. And the problem with all of this is that when you're in this friend zone and you're trying to repair this relationship, most people don't notice this until it's too late. And oftentimes when their partner starts to pull back, a lot of people double down on this. They become even more passive. They text more often. They're constantly checking on their partner every 2 seconds saying, hey, is everything okay? They sacrifice more of their time and they try harder to prove how loyal they are to this relationship. But oftentimes this ends up doubling down on this submissive, passive tactics and pushes you further and further into this safe friend zone forever. So the truth is that being nice is good. Of course you should be nice, but there needs to be a balance in terms of making sure that you're still pursuing your growth, pursuing your goals and your changes and all of the things that make you an independent person outside of a relationship at the same time. It can't be one or the other. If you are just only pursuing the stuff that is for you, then that means that you are falling for this lone wolf illusion. But if 100% of your availability is based around your partner, then you fall for the opposite end of the spectrum, which is constantly saying yes and never finding the right way to be able to navigate a conversation where you do disagree. So when you're stuck in the friend zone with your ex-partner, the biggest threat isn't what you're failing to do. It's the mistakes you keep making without realizing how destructive they are. That's why knowing what not to do is really, really critical to repair the relationship. So that first trap, like we mentioned, is endless availability. If you're always answering right away, canceling plans just to be around, or waiting for your ex-partner's text messages like they're your oxygen, then you're essentially telling them that you have no life outside of them. Now, this doesn't mean that you should fake it. It doesn't mean that you should be tactically timing your text messages or whatever it is, but you need to have enough of a life outside of the relationship so that naturally you are often busy pursuing the things that are important to you, which would naturally decrease the amount of availability that you have. So this isn't about artificially lying about your availability. This is about making sure that you are pursuing enough things and growth in your life that you don't have as much availability because you are focused on your growth, on your career, on your goals, on the things that are important to you as an individual. This isn't pretending that you are busy. This is actually being busy and focusing on that growth. So it's important to make sure that you are keeping a large amount of your time pursuing the things that are important and prioritizing them in those moments. Obviously, bar an emergency. That is the exception to the rule here. But the next trap is doubling down when you feel your ex-partner pulling away from you. A lot of guys think that when their partner is asking for space or they're going through a tough time, pushing more increasing availability, constantly bombarding with texts, reminding your ex that you'll always be there, then this will build trust. But there's a lot of research in psychology that shows the opposite. When attraction starts to slip away, doubling down on this is the wrong move. It cements you in this friend role. You're not increasing intimacy, you're increasing neutrality. If you're repeatedly trying to rescue your partner, then this doesn't rebuild attraction. It actually entrenches this friend role. And it's really crucial to see that these two patterns of being endlessly available and constantly pushing to try to increase this emotional safety, it doesn't show devotion, it shows dependence. And this is the death of the intellectual intimacy that we spoke about earlier. So your partner or ex-partner may thank you for being supportive and may even appreciate this comfort in those moments, but underneath, you're staying in this categorization of safe but not necessarily desirable. And the more that you repeat this behavior, the deeper you sink into that category. So this doesn't mean that you do nothing. That is not the solution here. But neither is repeating the ineffective behaviors over and over again, thinking that it's going to eventually work. By constantly being over available and doubling down on it, you're choosing an ineffective path and hoping that it works. So if you do want to climb out of this friend zone, you have to disrupt this habit completely. So how? How do we break out of this friend zone loop and reset this ability to lead a relationship in the right direction? The very first step, like we mentioned, is to make sure that you are focused on your growth. Being able to be focused on what you do as an independent person, ensuring that you're self-sufficient, allows you the space to actually lead a relationship. This may sound counterintuitive, but the more you focus on your independent growth and making sure that you are self-sufficient in providing your own emotional well-being, your career, your housing, etc., the less you need from a relationship. By focusing on building your own self-sufficiency, especially when it comes to emotional self-sufficiency, the natural outcome is a decreased amount of availability. Now, again, I want to be clear, this isn't about pretending that you're busy. This isn't about purposefully texting back late or only saying yes to one every 5 phone calls. This is about focusing on the things that are important for you so that you can show up best when you are in a relationship. You know, if you think about businesses that have staff meetings every 5 minutes. I used to work for a restaurant way back, and we would have a staff meeting every single day, and it never got anywhere and actually made things worse. But when you have a staff meeting once a week, the important stuff comes up, you can be very deliberate with that, and it creates a dynamic between you both where you can be very deliberate with those catch-ups and have more valuable conversations than constant texting every single day. And, you know, like we mentioned, this creates an absence, not artificially, but authentically. And this has an impact because it starts to disrupt this pattern. Over time, the more that you focus on this, the more naturally you will become more deliberate with your time. And this is what so many of my members have found. Once they shift away from this over-availability, not from a place of hate or punishment, but from a place of genuine growth and wanting to be better and more self-sufficient as a person, that's when they start showing up much more deliberately as a partner. By focusing on your own growth and learning communication skills, emotional regulation skills, finding your purpose in life, pursuing the goals that you have, you become a lot more effective in a relationship because it means you become a lot more deliberate with your time. It means that you can be a lot more effective within a relationship for your partner. And if you want to start that journey with us, then join my Relationship Bootcamp, where you'll learn the same fundamentals that all of my members use to start turning their relationships around and repairing their relationships from the ground up. I'll drop a link in the description if you want to grab your spot. And your partner will notice this growth. Your partner will notice that you are pursuing the things that are important, but it's important to make sure you're still carving out deliberate time to be available for your partner. Now, when you do this, things may escalate because you're breaking a pattern, and your partner may feel a bit confused, may feel a little bit hurt because of this change in pattern, and they may feel like you're caring less. So this may escalate, and it's really important that you know how to de-escalate this situation because your partner is expecting one thing and maybe starting to get something different. So I've actually done a deeper dive on this, which I'll link to on the screen and in the description down below. Knowing how to de-escalate situations that may blow up due to a change in pattern is going to be really important. So in this instance, you can de-escalate by validating your partner's feelings. For example, I can understand that maybe it feels a little bit confusing and maybe that I don't care right now. I think I'd feel the same way. But then making sure that you're taking ownership of the situation. For example, I thought a bit about the relationship and I feel like I've not been very effective in terms of our conversations. What I really want to do is I want to make sure that I'm carving out deliberate time for us to have a proper conversation. So perhaps maybe we can have this conversation in person, maybe Monday over dinner. That way I can actually be there and be present and listen to you rather than just having a half-assed conversation over text. What do you think? In this way, you're acknowledging your partner's feelings, but you're also taking ownership of the situation by delaying the conversation to a time that is going to be more effective for both of you. So like I said, this may feel a little bit awkward at first and it may take some practice, but luckily I've done a whole deep dive video on this, on how to de-escalate these situations. So I'm going to leave you with that deep dive video and I will see you over there.